Hello guys, how's it going? I'm happy to see you again. And today we will discuss this book that I have right here, Nothing Short of Dying. It actually is a thriller, and I just found out interesting things in this book. Then I decided to bring up to you guys some sentences that I thought are really interesting, and we might get confused as Spanish speaker. And I'm reading two books. This is the first one that I started a while ago. I think this is the most helpful book that I've been reading. So first of all, because this book is full of common usage in English. For example, the first one that I have here, I just found out interesting, is like, thank you for taking us in on a short notice. At first, on a short notice, it didn't sound familiar for me. That was so weird at first. Like, thank you for taking us in on a short notice. The meaning, talk about my presence in your house without calling you before, without expecting, right? The next one is, Choco should have been holding us back to the jeep by now. Howling us back. Oh my god, it was howling. That's the canine sound, the wolf howling, something like that. I was expecting like, oh my god, what it means. But that's a kind of idiomatic expression. Howling, like arriving right now or arriving by now. It means howling in this context, because they were talking about another guy that was fighting with guns against another people, and they were expecting he arrived soon, but he didn't do that. Then the character said he should be howling by now. So like, right now, what happened to Choco? Ali asked, tilting her head back at Caddy. Tilting, it's like an expression that people do when they are talking about something, but they pointed with the head, like looking toward that direction where the character is right away, or where the object is in that moment. Here's another expression in the page number 91. It says, the man with the holster returned fire, aiming at the grass. The second burst from Chopo found him, and his face disappeared in a blur. His face disappeared in a blur. A blur, it's an effect like our sight can identify like something hazy. It becomes opaque, not exactly like opaque, but it's more like losing the details. But what they wanted to mean with that expression, like his face disappeared in a blur, the main idea of the writer is trying to put the reader into the character's body. So I can understand that, like, if you were looking at the scene from the eyes of the character. That's interesting point of view in that sentence. We couldn't comprehend that otherwise, because that's the only way that makes sense, that sentence. Let me read that again. The man with the holster returned fire, aiming at the grass. The second burst from Chopo found him, and his face disappeared in a blur. It totally makes sense in that way. It's more like if you've been losing details with about things that you've been looking, but there are no details that you can't identify. Like if your side fizzle out. So it's very expressive. The author all the time is trying to put you into the movie, like if you were looking the scenes from that point exactly, right? Well, in the page number 92, when Chopo died, says a large neat hole had been drilled in front of his neck. Had been drilled. That word drilled is not only used for when you drill something on the wall. It's more like, in this case, a very descriptive way of saying it was so hard, like the sensation of drilling on his neck. Something like that I can comprehend of it. Okay, here's another interesting phrase, like I felt like a hound striking a scent, realizing this was my chance to find Jen. Hound, that word, it was interesting because I was looking up for the meaning, and hound actually is a breed, kind of breed. It was a dog they used a while ago for looking hints, or when somebody was lost. They used that breed, and it was interesting. That's a kind of comparison the author were doing between the character and the breed, right? Page number 97. I felt like a human sacrifice burned on the pyres of gender. Although I resisted the blanket condemnation, part of me to concede their point, men tend to make a mess of things. The blanket condemnation, that part they talk about a judgment they were doing against all the men, right? But he was the only man who represented all the men, right? Therefore, he had to resist that condemnation, like the judgment the girls were doing against him. That's all for now, and bye bye, and don't forget to buy my course because that's really helpful.